at the end. I know that quite a few of you are saddened and a little bit maybe even disappointed that Fiscus is starting to that Phil is taking a step back from Fiscus. But I do have to say that with me being MC, that there is I'm going to correct, in my opinion, one of the things that drove me crazy about Phil, which is that he always waited into the end of every Fiscus Friday to reveal what everyone was waiting for. I'm not going to make you all suffer in that same way. So when I am doing Fiscus Fridays, we're going to start with a little tiny update and then really get into the big meaty thing that everyone is waiting to hear about right pretty much up front, and then go and talk about miscellaneous business. So I hope that will relieve a little bit of the disappointment and the pain of me being MC. With that said, we'll go over to Doni, and he will be talking about NFTs. After that, we'll get right into it with Princess with her update about Dubai. Princess is having some technical difficulties, so we might have to speak on her behalf. If that does happen, then she will record something separately and post it afterwards. And after that, we will get into other little tiny tidbits. Okay, Doni, why don't you talk about the state of the NFTs?
Thank you, CSM. I appreciate it. With last week's announcements about the NFTs and how we have completed the minting of those, and obviously I said that in the next few days those will be sent out. But it's certainly an arduous task. But our admins have found a way to bulk send these out. We're doing a couple testing procedures in the meantime, but I expect this to happen pretty quickly in the next few days for all the NFT holders, with the exception of the blacklisted ones, to receive their NFTs inside their accounts or their wallets. And you can see those through Kaleo. And if certainly contact an admin if you have issues seeing those. It's similar to OpenSea, but it seems to be a little bit more robust and a little bit more reliable. So that's really kind of the update we have. So don't fret if you haven't seen your complete collection of NFTs in your wallet yet. I assure you, this week we have been working on that pretty furiously, and we've come up with a solution on bulk sending those out. Certainly minting and quotes were a tedious task, but those have been completed. So we are at the cusp of completing this part of our task. So that's really the only update I have as far as that goes. Obviously, DM me or admins to get any more questions that you might need answered specific to NFTs. But we are certainly moving forward. Back to you, CSM.
Yeah, great. I'm super excited about this. I'm super excited for everyone to have their NFTs and really the support that we've gotten from programmers in order to automate all this. It really saved a ton of time with the core team. So yeah, this will be addressed very shortly. So I was just messaging Princess, and unfortunately her connection is still not stable enough with Discord. So she will be making an audio recording that has her full update. I'm just going to give a brief, I know what everyone's waiting for. You're all waiting for, what is the state of the Dubai loan? And what I have to say from that is all of the relationships, all the talks, they're going very well. They're just at the point where now they're waiting on the government. So the Dubai government needs to basically verify that everything is going through, regulations and KYC and all that sort of stuff. And so that Princess has said that now they're looking at next week for that being done and dusted. But she will give more details in her audio update. In addition to that, Princess has shared some very, very exciting things about connections that she's made in Dubai. I can't. I'm not even going to try to speak and describe it and do it justice. I'll let her talk about some of those opportunities that have arisen. But it really is immensely excited to be in. We're really working with some of the top level financial operators in the world in one of the best places in the world, and we are connected at these very almost inner levels of this conversation. And so we will be, over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll be sharing more and more when we can about details with regards to that. But we'll also be sharing more about the narrative of what is the Fiscus vision and really trying to make that concise and clear. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Clarissa, who will give an update about operations.
Thank you. I don't have a ton to add that is sort of announcement ready for the community. There's a lot going on in the background. One of the big efforts is to sort of find ways to sort of channel some of the great content that's coming out of the community, the great ideas that are coming out of the community. And there's some discussions to create a process to sort of screen that content, check it for accuracy, and be able to sort of put it out as a resource for investors, for community members, for people who are just wanting to understand the structure and the process better. So that's in the works. But in terms of what that's going to look like, that's still being hashed out. So we're hoping to have an announcement for you soon about that. But in terms of what it's going to look like, we'll wait and see. And I don't have too much more than that, so I'll take it back to you.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. I will make a general comment here that I've been receiving incredible DMs from people offering support in so many ways from the community. And as I mentioned in one of my announcements this week, I can see all the pieces are in place. So it is all there in the community, in our DAO. It's while Princess and the work that Huawei is doing is of critical importance, we're now at the point where we have enough collective energy that we can reach the highest levels of potential even outside of the Huawei path in terms of the capital acquisition that has been talked about. And so that is extremely exciting to me. And with on that note of other pathways of capital, one thing that was mentioned was Phil said that he was working on a loan for that is using Georgia property in Georgia as collateral, and I'm happy to say that is closed. So that contract is closed. It will be offering about I think net I have about $2.3 million, and that is going to be used directly for Fiscus operations. So we haven't entirely worked out exactly where that's going to go to. As Phil put it, it should go to the highest leverage, highest impact sort of stuff. We will need to see exactly, wait for the loan to close in Dubai, and also some of my efforts in raising funds from investors. But this is a really nice security piece of being able to ensure that we have everything we need in place for operations and then to begin to leverage it as part of our project financing treasury. On top of that, one reason why Phil is not on Fiscus Friday in any fashion today is that he is also tracking down multiple other properties that can be used as collateral. He said that he's in Oklahoma and that there is another $2 million opportunity there, as well as 3 other opportunities that he's still scoping out. So Phil has hit the asset collateral trail, and with the progress that we've made in the recent weeks, that's really starting to open up. I have a figure in my mind. I'm not going to share that figure in my mind of what we're going to be able to close within the next week or two. But I can say that it is looking really great potential right now in order to have everything that we need for our entire reboot and to get and to get our project financing activated. On that note, there was another question that was asked, which I did not know the answer to, which is the leveraging process. So it's been communicated in the past that once we started getting these loans in, that it began a 30-day process to leverage that. So then that way we could use it for the set-asides into the Minzaga project financing. So I asked Princess for details on that. The question was, has that process begun? She says, yes, that process has begun. It requires multiple steps in terms of KYC and validation and things like that. She has begun that process. That should be done by the time that the Dubai loan is dispersed. And that means that when the loan is dispersed, then that begins approximately a 30-day cycle until it can be leveraged to its full potential. I'm not going to try to communicate more about the details of this right now because I think I would probably mess it up. But that is definitely something that Princess can share herself in terms of the scale of that. And when Princess has time, this is one of the things that I want to work with her in order to figure out how to communicate to the community just a little bit about how this leverage process works. Because I know that this is one of the primary questions that people have in terms of the pipeline here. Yep. So the other thing that people I know have been waiting for, and that there was a communicated deadline of last Wednesday, was on the accounting. So unfortunately, the accounting is not completed. At the 11th hour, when Phil was expecting to hear back about the final state, he was notified that there were still some discrepancies that need to be investigated. I do not have a time of when they anticipate getting that all sorted. I will seek to find that information from Phil and share that when he knows. I don't think he even knows at the moment, but that is something that will be updated. As far as I know, the general amounts that Phil had previously communicated are still relevant, and so I can reshare that information for anyone that wants to see it. It's really this accounting, the final accounting amount report is really just showing the breakdown more so than talking about the overall amounts. Okay, let me just take 3 seconds and see if there's any other questions that either people are asking in the AMA or in my mind. Okay, So here's a question in the AMA: how much work remains to be done on the on-chain aspects for a relaunch? And are we waiting on capital before we begin that? So what I will say is that with the updated tokenomics and also the revamp of the on-chain aspect in general, there is going to be substantial development work. I have been recruiting the talent involved that can begin to implement that. Um, I have some people in place that have said yes in order to begin to start on that. However, I also am looking for other very high profile leaders in the crypto space to see if I can get them to jump on board. We will not begin any development work, or we'll have very little development work before that capital is before it is acquired. I will be sharing a workflow of what I'm doing on my side, and how that fits into this overall on-chain development. I'll be sharing that soon after Fiscus Friday, so that everyone in the community can see how all these different pieces of funding all fit together and enable our on-chain relaunch. So I've mostly done with that, and I knew that this question would come up, so I had been working on that. What I will say is that in terms of getting investment for the on-chain, that I've had some great conversations this week with some strategic investors. So I'm seeking to raise about $1 to $2 million overall in terms of token sales. This includes buying PFISC that people want to exit, as well as some modest creation of new tokens. And at this moment, I'm really trying to find perfect fits in terms of these strategic investors. And so while I have a bunch of leads in being able to do the larger raise, I want to ensure that we get the proper people that are fully aligned in experience and our overall mission and vision. And the conversations this week have made me very heartened about being able to find these people. They've just been such amazing conversations. So I believe that within the next week or two, I will be able to close the investments that are operating in parallel with our on-chain or with our off-chain financing that we are in the process of closing. When that on-chain investment piece is completed, then that is going to unlock our on-chain development as well. So I'll be sharing that, and anyone can ask questions if they require. Okay, I don't see anyone else typing any questions in the AMA, and I think that I've covered everything that's been asked for this week. So I'm just going to talk briefly about Phil and Phil's role in Fiscus going forward. So as Phil communicated, multiple times over the last few months, it was always his plan to step back from leading Fiscus when the time was right. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why this is so important to do right now and why he chose to do it right now. I'm going to start with a little bit on the negative aspects of his participation, and then quickly shift into why this is actually a great thing for him and why he's so excited. So on the negative aspects, I'm just going to be blunt and say that with Phil's background, it is extremely difficult in order to get investment as well as strategic partnerships. I've spent more time talking about Phil in my investment conversations than the rest of Fiscus combined. Like, not even close. I think it's probably been twice as long. no matter how I try to frame it, no matter what I lead in, no matter what I show, it always comes back around to, oh, what about this Phil character and his background? The As we go forward, we are going to be implementing a legal structure here very soon, with Phil having no formal participation in that legal structure and also no formal ownership. It is going to make these conversations so much easier. I think I could have raised all the investment money like 2 or 3 times over of what we needed, if there hadn't been that that factor to this point. So that's the negative aspect, of his involvement, where that is being removed. But I don't really want to focus on that too much, because the fact is that Phil is really, really looking forward to the freedom that he has not leading Fiscus. So I've had conversations with him about what he's going to do, going around the world, finding amazing projects that he really wants to see manifested in the world, particularly around food production and land and energy, and there's just so much stuff. As I've said, he's kind of like a kid in a candy store. It's just he's just really excited about all the potential that is opening up. And so this is, while there is this aspect of like, yes, we need to move on and into a new leadership team, the fact is that Phil is going to be able to provide his best strengths and what he wants to do as being outside of the formal leadership. He is still going to be in the background, providing advice, helping Princess and myself and any other people that come on as developing the vision of Fiscus. But ultimately, he's going to bring new opportunities to us, and we'll be able to act on those as we see fit. So I just want to be clear about that. I am not sure exactly how much he is going to be participating in the community. That is not something that I've asked him, but he will definitely be around. He just will not have any formal roles. Okay, so that is pretty much it for Fiscus Friday. I was going to end with a really beautiful quote, but I'll have to wait until next week in order to find the right one. And the one last thing, actually, no, I take that back. I do know what beautiful quote I want to end with. Just give me 1 second to find it. So as you know, I made a request this week, and I asked people to share what Fiscus meant to them, what initially attracted them to Fiscus, and what they hoped to get out of it personally, and what they hoped to see in the world from it. There's a little bit of confusion about why I asked that, but the responses that I got just really blew me away, and were perfect, and they were just completely in line with what I did, which is just the incredible amount of comprehension that so many of our investors have about what we're trying to create, and the eloquent way that they're putting it together in communicating what it means for them, why they were attracted, and what they see it could be in the world. I literally just took a bunch of what you all were putting in the general chat, and I just put it directly into the investment deck, because I was like, there is no better way that I can describe Fiscus than what our investors are saying. And so I would like to share with what I don't know if you say it Tachil or not, but I really want he wrote, or they wrote such a beautiful a document that I really want to share with everyone. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend that you read it. So let me find the quote that that he's he shared. So first he quotes Tupac Shakur. He says, "I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee you that I will be the spark, that I will spark the brain that changes the world." Sorry. And that is exactly what we're doing at Fiscus. At Fiscus, we're not trying to be the lone genius. We're not trying to be the ones that are saying we are doing the things that are going to change the world. We are really the spark. We are really the framework that we can bring to the world's best entrepreneurs that have been consistently overlooked, the world's communities that have been consistently overlooked, and really empower them to own their own development, and in doing so, really benefit the world at large. So, as Cecile puts it, he says, "Everything in Fiscus is compounding, reciprocating, restorative, and reiterative, but yet not redundant or restrictive. It has the ability to recycle the massive self-serving and self-enriching tools and structures of traditional finance that have and continue to inflict massive harm for so many generations. By reinventing these tools using technology to empower and scale efforts to implement and generate economic justice, provide equity, inclusion, and it will make the foundation of a new global paradigm of capital and power." And that is really why we're here. And over the coming weeks, we are going to really work on better communicating this to the world at large. And we all hope that you will join us both in our journey going forward and in our efforts to communicate this message. So that's Fiscus Friday, and as always, feel free to ask any follow-up questions in the AMA. Thank you.
Hello, Fiscalites. It's Princess talking to you live, or recorded in this case, at 12 a.m. from Dubai. It has been quite the journey to get to this point. We have begun our process with Al Rafa Investments. We have begun the paperwork. The notarization and legalization process does take a little bit longer than they anticipated, so we will begin our second stage in conversations next week, which is really about funds transfer as well as the conversation around the pipeline. And they have interest in supporting the pipeline but want to know more. So we are moving as we had anticipated prior to the journey, and now that I'm here, we have engaged the process. On other fronts, to take advantage of the time that I do have here, I have been in touch with the Abrahamic Business Circle, had a wonderful hour conversation with the managing director, and found out that we're both Filipina, and so this created an immediate close connection to the efforts that I'm engaging in across investor fronts. And because of her position as the managing director, she is able to do direct invitation and direct introduction to members of the circle, to include direct investor introductions, as well as a direct introduction to the chairman. And she's already begun that process even prior to my membership application, as I was able to go to the Dubai Opera house and meet another member of the circle who has given me complimentary tickets so that I can bring investors and project developers to the events there to begin the conversations. Had also have been meeting with a couple of project developers here. One that's actually based out of Zurich. They have collateral of about 1 to 2 million. They said to me, because they were focused on venture capital money, they really thought this was a different way of thinking than they were anticipating, and much more favorable to the timeliness of what they're looking for. So they're wanting to immediately find out how they can get into our pipeline and how they can get their funds leveraged for their project, and they have about a total of about $35 million need in their project liquidity. The other group is actually one that is quite an elevated group, already approved by Zaga, but they are based here in Dubai. And one of the things that I love about this project is that because they are based here, it'll be a great way for me to have conversations with these investors to let them know that there's projects that are based here that they can observe, see tangibly getting constructed and built, and know that those dollars have direct impact to what they're witnessing all around them. On top of that, this group is a very successful group that does branded strategies and has 3 contracts already with the top luxury vehicle companies in the world. And they have subsequent projects not only in Dubai, but in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, as well as Southeast Asia. They bring with them already a contract interested in profit sharing from the profits of their towers, their luxury towers, and when also diving deeper into their social mission, they are focused on social impact and social security for employees that work with them, which is a huge corporate responsibility tactic that we're starting to see. Some of these old guard corporate companies shifting their presentations and their capital towards longevity for their companies. What comes along with this is also a network of VIP executive business relationships that date back to the middle of the 1980s. So this is a Rolodex of over 300,000 business leaders that would allow for us to start to market to them with regard to our token. They actually wanted to do a tokenization. They received a proposal from a company for tokenization on the back end of their deal. However, when I reviewed it, it did not look to be a very strongly thought out proposal in accordance to their social and governance structures. And he immediately said to me, listen, if you have a token already in development, I would be more than happy to open up our 300,000 executive business network to that token and also to our project and develop their strategies that way. So this is quite a wonderful level of thinking coming from project developers. They're looking at the progress and the progressiveness of our plan and our structure, as well as, I think, being in Dubai, there's a lot of that kind of talk, a lot of that type of investment and that type of strategy, and participating and knowing that in order for projects to have longevity, they've got to be thinking in these digital asset ways. So really successful conversations thus far. We are inching even closer and closer to closing. So I do anticipate us having success in closing at some point next week. We have to be mindful that in Dubai, those that are local to Dubai tend to have a shortened business week, but they do get quite a bit done during the days that they are operating. On top of that, I know that we have to be thinking about the different types of assets that come in. So it's not just capital, cash capital that we're talking about. It's actually real estate assets, as well as crypto assets, as well as other assets that can be leveraged into our system for liquidity towards projects, but even more so towards our leveraging programs that we have access to. Now, to clarify some questions that have come up with regard to the leveraging process, it is not just a turnkey process. This is just as careful deal structuring and making as it is to strike a good deal with regard to the project developing side of our work. So what that means is that there are high levels of know your client in this process, or KYC. So I've already begun some of that, where people have received my formation documentation from myself, so that they know that I'm a real person. And then once capital is situated, then we talk about the timeline of exactly once it's situated into a top tier bank, I understand which top tier bank they're working in, and then I do due diligence on who's actually operating the leveraging components and facilities. That includes who's supervising the operations, and I have to KYC those folks. So we have begun the process, but that's why I say that while the leverage programs are typically between 20 and 28 days, combined with the KYC and due diligence components, we're looking at about a 30 to 45 day, just to be safe, process to really kind of get not only the funds situated, but also the leveraging program to be initiated. So again, we're really at about a 30-day out, at least, for some of that capital to be leveraged. However, with the conversations I've been having with the investors, we could be seeing more investments coming in, allowing us to do a more demonstration towards projects from within that 30-day process. That is the goal. That is the anticipation, and that is the goal in my work, and those are the milestones in the work that I'm doing here. There is another project that has presented a current investor that's already on their board, and that is situated here in Dubai, and conversations I'm having in Dubai, Doha, Saudi Arabia. All of these areas are, a wealth of resources for opportunity, especially in the Web3, metaverse, blockchain industries. And so we are seeing that these conversations will be progressing. So I'm planning on being here to see out those conversations for a close, for actual capital being committed and not just pledged. So I'm equipped with all the documentation necessary, and everything from formation documents to business licenses to identification, everything that really shows our forthrightness in doing good business and doing business as efficiently as possible and as cleanly and clearly as possible in terms of meeting all the levels of regulation at the international level, as well as making sure that the assets that are getting pledged are also coming to us with clarity and verification, so that the due diligence on that end is really supportive of a process where we won't be getting questions in the aftermath of accepting the assets and then distributing. These things are very important and add to another layer of complexity. And I need the community to understand the carefulness in the due diligence, especially in these times, that we have to do. There are a lot of sanctioned assets here. So it's really important that when I do my work, I'm doing it with a level of steadfastness and a level of attention to detail when it comes to exactly what is being offered, how it's being offered, where it came from, how it was sourced, and ultimately that it will be allowed to be leveraged into our system, which is rooted in entities that are based in the United States. And we are doing some good having some good conversations around exactly what those needs will be as we progress. But so far we are on track. Just a few business days delayed in processing from the Dubai assets that we were coming here to pick up. But the conversations are progressing as steadily as I had anticipated, which is wonderful. And these are close connections. Once they're in your network, there's a great deal of opportunity here. I've also heard from some other investors that are actually moving into to Dubai or Abu Dhabi, and they heard the business that we're conducting here, and are also interested in our pipeline. So especially those folks that are in oil and gas have interest in North American oil and gas projects, and so we're addressing some of that as well. So, we have such a diverse level of project developers out there, and with the focus on indigeneity and indigenous leaders being supported, there's a great deal of interest coming from all aspects, and also our rootedness and centering in the ESG positive future sustainability of these projects and outcomes has really separated us from the pack. We are based on a process and program and project that allows for real assets, these projects that we're financing, to come to the table versus some of the other token programs or projects that are out there that really are getting quite a bit of scrutiny because they do not have that kind of verification on the back end. So know that we've done a lot of good work in structuring. We had to do that to make sure we are competitive, and it's certainly making its case as we continue to go to market with these conversations. And remember, it's more than just a sales job, it's a relationship job. It's about doing what I call the butt sniff test on both sides, making sure that we're all nice and clear and that it goes into long-term sustainable relationships for the long haul, because it's not just one project, it's multiple projects that can come out of one developer. It's not just one layer of sustainability, it's multiple layers of sustainability. And it's not just one type of asset, it's multiple types of assets. So we are playing all fields, all positions, all the time. And I do know that Phil, with his background in real estate, he is also being able to identify some real estate assets that are coming forward as the real estate market also starts to shift. We are seeing that impact and that being in our favor. So we're in a great position. This market is really quite favorable, as I've mentioned, to this kind of project development. This is why I went into business, into global project finance. During downturns in various marketplaces, it's this industry that does quite well. So we're getting a lot of attention. We are not without projects. However, we are without projects that have a lot of collateral to them. So that's why I have to do a double lane approach in our strategy, where we're also acquiring assets. So for those of you who are sitting wondering, geez, why is this taking so long? Or when is launch? It really has to do with these components, that it's multiple and complex in its nature. So if you have ideas or know of projects that have collateral or know of assets that can be pledged and committed to a process, by all means come forward. We would be happy to talk to you about that. We are broadening and widening our scope so that we can be pulling in as many of these opportunities as possible, now that we especially have a very efficient system and approach to getting those assets immediately into the ecosystem that we've created. So more details to come. Sorry, I do not have anything as direct as a dollar amount that is coming to the table right now. However, know that this is we are exactly where we need to be to catch exactly those dollars, and to be able to catch as much of that as is willing to be committed. So stay tuned. I will be doing as much as I can in communication back to the team so that you can get some updates as they roll out. But right now we are in the thick of it. So until next time, be well, think to the future, and best of luck to all of us as we continue to go out there and start to share the great opportunities that exist within our community and within this new day and new challenge of bringing something that has yet to be done to the market, something that's desperately needed across all elements, and something that has great impact into the future. So, with that being said, until next time, I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.